Hello everyone, and welcome to the LinkedIn Careers Hack Seminar here at the Reinvent Your Career Expo in Melbourne. And I live in Melbourne, originally from Adelaide, and I was at the Reinvent Your Career Expo in Brisbane in March. And I'm pleased to tell you I've got even more tips today than what I actually gave away in Brisbane. So get ready, it's going to be pretty fast paced because obviously the idea is to give you as many ideas and suggestions as possible in the next 25 minutes. And I also want to allow time for some questions. So if you've got questions, I'm happy to answer those. Obviously another presenter is going to be on at 2 o'clock, so we can't go forever on questions, but I will be staying around. So if you've got another question you'd like to ask me, happy to do that. I'm also going to give you instructions at the end of the seminar on how you can get a copy of all the slides as well. So that'll be happening also. So basically LinkedIn started on the 5th of May 2003. I joined on the 21st of December 2003. So it's recently gone up to over 364 million members. Two new members per second are joining LinkedIn, and you can see that we've got over 7 million in Australia, and a lot of the expanding groups are students and people in regional areas of Australia as well. If you Google your name, then normally what's going to happen is your LinkedIn profile is going to come up, and 95% of hiring managers will check you and your digital footprint on Google before they consider hiring you. 90% of jobs are actually not even advertised, so that's a really important thing to remember. LinkedIn will actually be your pull strategy rather than your push strategy for finding work. I find after working with people since 2010 on their LinkedIn profiles, there's a few people have a few hang-ups about LinkedIn. And one of the first thing is they're very private individuals and they don't like having all their information online. I basically let them know there's no such thing as privacy anymore, but also this is also your past history. It doesn't tell people where you're going or where you're going to be at a certain time, but it also is a way to have a digital footprint. So if you haven't had anything else online, maybe apart from a Facebook profile, then this is something that people can check out and see. Because if somebody Googles your name and they can't find any information about you, they're a little bit suspicious. Well, who is this person? Do they really exist? Because everybody's more or less expected to have some sort of digital footprint nowadays. A lot of people say they don't know who to connect to, so I obviously let them know pretty much you can connect to anybody because the spam algorithms are very good in LinkedIn and they'll remove nuisance people before you even do. So by expanding your network, you'll have better search results, and I talk about using LinkedIn from the free account perspective, not from the premium, but I will talk about premium as well. A lot of people think it takes too much time. Well, I'm here to tell you it takes about 10 hours to complete your profile if you put all your details on there, but you only have to do it once, and then you can just touch it up a little bit to achieve the goals that you want with LinkedIn. Some people say it's too costly. Well, I only use the free account and have been since 2003. Some people say, but I can't write. And I say, well, you don't actually have to be, fantastic at prose. All you need to be able to do is write dot points, because at the end of the day, the computer is looking for the words. They're not looking for your sentences. And a lot of people, because we just scroll on our devices now, we don't actually read sentences anyway. So dot points is actually a much better way for people to interpret your information. If you're scared of computers, well, it's pretty easy. It says put in here this detail, that detail. So it's fairly straightforward. It's not complicated, but you can be very tactical about how you use it if you follow some of the tips you learned today. And if you do need help, why not sit down with a friend and you both do your LinkedIn profiles together? Sometimes that's a way to actually make you do it. One of my clients recently took 3 months to do 2 hours worth of homework, so if he'd just done the 2 hours of homework, he could have been started on the second stage of his process, obviously a lot quicker. So before you start doing any edits to your profile, I suggest you do these 3 things. So the first thing is to collect your statistics. So how many views have you had in the last 90 days? And so that's something that you can do from your profile page on the right-hand side or at the top when you log in. And if you're not getting more than 100 views per 90 days, I'd say you're not really in the market for job seeking. So you have to try and get it to about that result or more. I'm just over 1,000 views every 90 days, but I run lots of networks and do lots of things. So I'm trying to attract people to my profile. You also need to save your profile to PDF. So the way you do that is visit your profile page, and there's a little blue box with a drop-down menu, and there you can save your profile to PDF, and that way you've got a backup copy of everything you've entered on your LinkedIn profile. If you like somebody else's profile, you can also save that to PDF, print it out, and borrow some ideas from their profile. So it's another good way to, have all that information readily accessible for you. And the third thing to do is to export all of your LinkedIn connections, because you never know, LinkedIn could go poof overnight, not that I'm expecting it to, but if it did, then obviously you'd want to be able to recreate your profile. So if you've got a copy of all your content and a copy of all your connections, then there's a very good chance that you're actually going to be able to recreate your profile. Or if you start spamming people or annoying people, your profile will be deleted. So, if you haven't got that backup copy of your connections and your content, it's going to be very difficult to recreate your profile. And I actually recommend that you do that every 90 days or before or after you've made significant changes to your profile. So when I think about LinkedIn, and any computer stuff I do, because I also teach at the CAE, I always start off by saying, what is your purpose? And you really need to be clear about what your purpose is and what sort of work you're trying to attract. Because if you make it really clear, and I'm the recruiter and I read your profile, I want to say hell yes or hell no quickly. And that's better for you and it's better for me. Because if I say hell yes, I'm going to be much more interested and I'll actually call you. And if it's hell no, I won't waste your time. So, think about it as, this is your positioning statement and you can actually go out there. And I'm very against people putting in, I have 24 years of experience in such and such. And the reason I hate that expression is because if there's somebody who's 24 years old, when they read that, they think you're an absolute dinosaur. I mean, if you think back to when you were 24 years of experience, makes somebody sound ancient. So it's really important that you describe your skills in terms of the value that you bring. And then I often work with a lot of people over the age of 45, and I find that they say, oh, but all the young people get all the jobs. And I say, well, do you want to work for $20 an hour, 12 hours a day and travel for 7 days a week? And they say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I'd just like to work maybe 3 days, bit of consulting, what I'm worth. Right, well then let's go for that, because that's obviously better value that you can bring. And you can state that in your summary and explain how that's the type of work you're looking for, so that when somebody does look at your profile, they say, yeah, we want this person for 2 days a week. That'd be gold. We can't afford them for 5 days a week, but their expertise in that 2 days would be really valuable to us, and that's, what we can manage, and they've got other work, so that'll be fine. You also need to think about the computer experience, because if there's a keyword that you want to be known for and you don't include it in your profile, you're not going to be found for it. So there's a really ironic situation. Last year I was speaking at a conference in Adelaide for the Career Development Association of Australia. So that's all the people over at the CDAA stand who will give you some advice on your resume. And I think of somebody who gives me advice as a career counsellor. So I typed into LinkedIn, Career Counsellor Adelaide, and guess what? Not one of their profiles came up, because they called themselves career development practitioners in their profession. But the user, me, was looking for a career counsellor. So you need to think about the keywords. If you want a job in a particular area, what are those keywords that the person who's looking for you has to be in your profile? So in this example on the screen, I talk about somebody who used to be in usability, because that was the term that was used with websites some years ago. Now it's gone into UX, user design, CX, customer experience, and so on. So unless you include all of those words in your profile, then you're obviously not going to come up in search results. But you also need to think, when the person arrives at your profile, if all they saw were those keywords throughout your profile, they're not going to find that very interesting. And 20% of the time is going to be spent looking at your photo. Longer if it's a bad photo. Less if it's a good photo. And you actually want it to be less, because you want them to go straight into reading your content. So if you haven't got a photo, it's time to get one. Looking at the camera, smiling with your teeth showing, preferably on a light coloured background, and angled so that the person looks to the right and can see the text next to your photo. You also need to think about the headline and not just have seeking opportunities. That is a really bad one. There's no keywords in seeking opportunities. And plus the fact, as recruiters, we like to get somebody from a job into a job. Now, even if you're not working, if you're labelled as experienced in these areas, that's going to be much better value for you. please come in and join us if you'd like to sit down. And also it must be really easy to read. It needs to be consistent in formatting, so not heaps of detail in one job and no detail in another job. You have to fill in the gaps. So, you know, if you look at my profile, I'm more than happy for you to look at my profile. You'll see that my career started off at Westpac and I put 11 years in altogether because that was pre-1994. And then the next few years was when I was studying and looking after my children and doing contract work. So I put that entire 6 years in together in one block and I summarised it within that block. So there's no gaps. Because if there's gaps on resumes, we, as a recruiter, we think, oh, right, they were in jail, they were in hospital, they were, you know, defrauding somebody, they were in court, you know, they had a disability. So you don't want any gaps to appear on your resume. And if there is a gap, you need to explain why. So one of the people I was working with recently had actually been in jail. And so we actually had to, you know, massage the message and highlight the fact that he'd done a cooking course and this other sort of stuff while he was in jail. So, you know, there's all sorts of ways to manage this type of content, but it can be done. So don't think I can't do my LinkedIn profile because, you know, there is definitely a way around it. I do not recommend that you pay for premium until you actually have a really decent profile up already. Because if you don't have the keywords in there, it doesn't read well, there's a crappy photo, just paying for premium is not going to help you in your search. Now, not many people will tell you this, but if you do a search on LinkedIn, the absolute key place to have your keywords is in your headline. If it's not in your headline, you are just not going to come up in search results. But the second most important position is in your job title. So if you're an IT manager now, and then you put in usability, UX, CX, all that after the job title, then that's going to come up in search results more. So you can put it in your current job title and so on. So here I talk about how you've got 120 characters that you can fill it in, what you can put in each box. So after your job titles, then we look at education section, the summary section, the experience section. So all of those places are really important. You can also massage your skills to make sure that the top 10 are really the top 10 skills that you have, and you try and get votes for those. And don't worry about all the fictitious votes that people don't know but they still vote for you, because I sort of figure at least 30% is still correct. And also, you don't actually have to say that you've got that 24 years of experience. So, for example, I started training in 1987, but that job started in 1982. So it actually looks on my profile like I've been training since 1982. So, you know, you can sort of trick the computer in some ways as well. And that also happens with your resume when it goes into an applicant tracking system. So if you put those keywords in your previous jobs, provided you did do that work in those previous jobs, then you're much more likely to come up in search results again, because it's going to show that you've got more experience in that category. So then there's some hacks that you can do that will trigger off good responses from LinkedIn as well. So if you endorse a few people for the skills that you know they have, then LinkedIn will say, does Sue know about this? Does Sue know about To My Connection? So it's a reminder that you exist, and it reminds people to look at your profile. Also, if you publish at least 2 posts on your profile, what will happen is when you come up in search results, your last 2 posts will appear in the search results. So you actually end up with quite a lot more screen real estate on your search result, which bumps all the other people down. So by having 2 posts on, you know, written on topics that are relevant to you, that's also going to help your profile. If you recommend others, then you're going to be on their profile. So if you think about it, if you're all in IT and you recommend them and the person doesn't like the look of their profile, but your recommendation is sitting on their profile, then they might look at you. So, you know, it's a way of increasing your reach a little bit further out. And it's probably one that a lot of people wouldn't even think of doing. But again, only write in a recommendation what you're prepared to say in court, because those recommendations have actually been used in court. If you view others, there's a 30% chance that they will view you back. And I have heard the story of a guy who stalked somebody so often and kept applying for jobs at the same company that eventually they rang him up and said, do you want to work here? What do you think he said? Yes, you know. So that's a much better success rate. 30% just by looking at a few people, you've got a chance of them looking at you. Much better than cold calling as a statistic, which is less than 5%. And also if you follow a company. So the National Australia Bank has LinkedIn Recruiter. Come in and sit down if you'd like to join us. And what they actually do is they target future employees based on whether they follow the company. So there's particular organisations you'd really like to work for and they have a profile on LinkedIn, make sure you follow them. So if you go to the next stage and you've completed your profile, you've been active, you've put in all your primary and secondary keywords, the next thing you can do is pay for premium, or you can try the 1 month free premium. And now is the time to take action on your career, because now it's footy season in Melbourne. And of course, after footy season, then it's Melbourne Cup, and then it's Christmas, and then it's January holidays, and nobody does anything. So now is the time to take action on your career. So update your profile and then do the free premium for a month. What you're going to get with that is InMail, so that you can contact people directly. You will come up higher in search results. You will also be the preferred candidate if you apply for a job through LinkedIn. But when you apply for a job through LinkedIn, don't just press the automatic button, send my profile. Make sure you attach what I call an application, which is a cover letter matched exactly to the job description on the advertisement, as well as your resume in one document, because you can only attach one item. And I've had a 100% success rate with everybody who has done that. They've all got an interview for the job. Because as a recruiter, if I look at your application and it exactly matches my job description, I say, oh, that's a match. I don't have to do any calculations. Does that look like this somehow? No, it matches entirely. So it's far better for you to match your description. So I'd like to apply for the job of usability manager, and the job ad says needs at least 5 years experience in user design. I have 5 years experience in user design, and just match every single dot in your cover letter. Okay, you can also do much more wider searches. So if you are looking for more people, you can search everybody on LinkedIn rather than just your first and second level connections. If you connect to me, I've got nearly 7,000 connections here in Australia and overseas, so that'll give you access to a lot more results as well. So I'm more than happy for you to connect with me. And also there's a bit of prestige. If they can afford premium, even if they're not working now, they must have, they must have managed their money well. So, use up that free premium account for the time you've got it. And also, remember, you've still got to stick to your purpose and complete your profile first. You're still not going to get value unless you've done that prior. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest for you to do when you go home is complete your profile. I've said it multiple times now, but it's just not going to happen unless you've got your primary and secondary keywords in there. You need to explain your transferable skills. So I was recently working with Holden, and I'm going off to Ford. And I've been to Alcoa down in Geelong because they're, leading town as well. And they have all these fantastic job titles. So one guy was a grip test engineer. Does anybody in this audience know what a grip test engineer does? I didn't think so. And of course, most recruiters are not going to know that either. But they don't want to appear stupid. But if I tell you that a grip test engineer makes sure that the car does not roll over, all of a sudden, I realise that's one smart guy. Tyres, braking, suspension, aerodynamics, weight of the vehicle, road conditions, idiot behind the wheel. You think of all the variables that grip test engineer has to calculate, that's one smart guy. But if he just writes grip test engineer on his resume, I'm not going to remember him at all, apart from, it was interesting. Another selection criteria I helped somebody write was, do you have any languages other than English? And she was going for a job as a tour guide at the National Gallery. But she could lip read. So instead of just saying, no, I only speak English, we said, well, I can also lip read. And so that made her application interesting and also really memorable. Because now where was that applicant who could lip read, and let me find that person, I'd like to interview them. She got the interview and she got the job. So, you need to make your profile in some way a little bit memorable. You need to stay on purpose and tell the whole story. So don't be worried about your age. Do you want to be rejected after an interview or before an interview? I figure I don't even want to go to the interview if they're going to reject me on age, and I turn 50 this year. So, just don't worry about it. It's the value that you bring, and people want that. Okay, if you do start contacting people, ask for information, not referrals. Don't say, can you check my resume and give me a job? People are going to say no. That's like asking you to marry you on the first date. It's just not going to happen. So ask for information. Can you tell me about careers in your industry? I need some help Could you review my profile and give me any tips and suggestions on what I could do to improve it? It's a much better way to get a result. You can also seek a mentor or an advisor to work with you, and I suggest that you try and negotiate a 3-month arrangement where you chat at least once or twice in person, a couple of phone calls, maybe once a week, and emails as needed for 3 months. And a lot of people, if you ask them that question, will actually say, yeah, I can manage that and help you out. So don't be afraid to ask for a mentor, particularly if they've got a similar type of profession or industry or country of origin experience. And keep up your LinkedIn activity. Log in each day, do something here and there, even if it's only 5 minutes. By keeping your profile active, you're much more likely to come up in search results. So there is a goodie bag, you wouldn't believe it, on a seminar for this event. If you can take a photo of the screen, and if you send me a text message, I will do this. I will give you a copy of these slides and the audio recording. I will also give you a copy of the LinkedIn profile guide, as well as invite you to the LinkedIn questions webinar. I'm going to have it at 8 o'clock on Wednesday night, the 3rd of June. And I'll also let you know when my book comes out, 120 Ways to Maximise LinkedIn. And now I'm ready for questions, and I think I've got about 3 minutes. So who would like to ask the first question? Yep. Reinvent Your Career Melbourne. RYCM, yeah, because I get texts from all sorts of people, so I like to track, which list to put it on. So let me know, what's your best question for today? Because I did want to make sure I covered some questions. Yes?
Do you have any advice for someone who hasn't got current working visa? So I've got a lot of connections, I've got a very good profile, but the barrier is not having.
Yeah. Look, it really is difficult if you don't have local experience or the right visa. Now, the reason people say you can't get any work for no local experience is because they can't see you as a cultural fit. But if you're not getting it because of your visa, you're much more likely to get work if you meet people face to face. And you're probably going to find that you're going to have to get entry-level positions. So you need to go to events where you're going to meet people, and then when they Google you and they look at your profile, they can say, wow, we're getting her for a bargain basement price. I realise we're only going to have her for 3 or 12 months or whatever, but she'd be great value to us in the meantime. That people need to meet you, if that's the condition, because then they feel, oh yeah, she looks okay, and then they might consider sponsoring you later. But yeah, working without a visa, it is trickier, definitely trickier. I would not mention it on your profile though, no. But I would say, what you've done to learn about the Australian workplace, and even if you're just working in a pizza shop, I'd put that on there.
And I've been volunteering in the field.
Volunteering, put that in your experience section rather than your voluntary section now. Yeah.
What is the best way to get around local experience?
The best way to get around local experience is to make sure you barrack for a Melbourne football team, because basically what happens is people are assessing you on cultural fit rather than expertise. If you've got to the interview stage, then, you're in the ballpark. But the 3 main ways that new arrivals get work are through networking, referrals and voluntary work. That's the 3 main ways that you get it. But even if it was a referral, they're still going to Google you and check your LinkedIn profile. But voluntary work, particularly if it's in your industry or profession or close to home, is also worthwhile. And even if you need to earn a living, I actually recommend that you take a part-time job or in a pizza shop kind of stuff, because it's really important that you understand more about the local culture. So even putting that on is fine, but please don't plateau and stay in the pizza shop forever, because I'm sure you've got a lot of skills and experience, and it'd be great to use those as well. I think I've got time for one more question. Yep. Yep. Have you been doing other things during the time that you've been out of the workforce? Excellent. So put all that voluntary in your experience. So if you look at my profile, I'm on the Victorian Council, the Australian Human Resources Institute, and because that's a voluntary position but related to my area of expertise, I've actually put that in my experience section. And if you were doing any sort of, help at the school or something like that, you can list all of that, because it's all transferable skills. And you don't have to mention that any of it was voluntary. You can also mention things in your summary like I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to be mentored, and I'm willing to do further training in my own time and at my own expense. and a lot of people will be really receptive to that as well. But again, because you've been out for a while, I'd still go back to the mantra of networking, referrals and voluntary work as the three main things. I'm really conscious of making sure I stay on time. My business cards, there's some in the chair at the front and some at the back. You're welcome to message me. I'm going to hang around for a while. I also run an event called Living, Working and Networking in Melbourne on the second Wednesday of every month. So if you want to go to that, that's just newcomersnetwork.com. And you can join me there, and you can always connect to me on LinkedIn, and you Google me. I'm all over Google, you know, for like 20 pages worth, so there's no way you can't find me, and I'm happy to answer questions. So thanks for joining us.
Brilliant talk in the seminars area. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the Reinvent Your Career Expo, proudly supported by Acquire Learning.